Hey friends, do you find yourself in the cycle of self-sabotaging? Today's episode is all about self-sabotage, why it happens, how to understand it, and to get out of the cycle so that you can be, have, and interact in the way that you want to in the world. Welcome to another episode of The Road to Radical Visibility, where we have powerful conversations and interviews that empower LGBTQ plus neurodiverse and female entrepreneurs and professionals around the globe to be more bold in the expression of themselves, their mission, and their truth 100% of the time in business and in life. My name is Rachelfreemonsowers, and I'm so glad that you're here with me. If you enjoy this episode, make sure to go and hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel, or go ahead and hit that download or subscribe button on the podcast. You can find Road to Radical Visibility podcast on Amazon, Apple, and Spotify, just to name a few. Okay, so let's dive into our topic. And I want to tell you today about why this topic came up. So I was working with a client and she said to me, I do good for a little bit. You know, we can hear the story a lot. So I do good for a little bit. And then I feel that I self-sabotage myself. And how come I can only go and be good, she said, for 3 weeks or so, and then I just fall off the wagon. And this happens in all parts of life. So it can happen with new eating schedules. It can happen with alcohol. It can happen with drugs. It can happen with new exercise. It can happen with a new routine or journaling. I mean, it can really happen with anything. And my client has this desire to really live and be in the world in a different way than she has ever experienced. But she continues to self-sabotage. And she said, Rachel, why do I keep doing this? I wonder if any of this sounds familiar to you, because it definitely was familiar to me before I found out how I could stop the cycle of self-sabotage. And there's lots of opinions about self-sabotage. But today I want to debunk some of the things that you may think you have to do. So one of the reasons we continue to self-sabotage is because willpower is not an infinite source. It is a finite source. So we go and go and go and go. And then all of a sudden we can't do it anymore. We can't maintain that kind of like hyperactivity focus. We can't maintain maybe the pushing that we're doing. And our mind and bodies can't handle that amount of stress for extended periods of time. And so sooner or later, the body gives out and then the mind gives out. So some people think like, oh, it's a mindset issue. It's a mindset issue. It's not a mindset issue. It's a mind-body alignment issue. So that's one of the things. So willpower is not infinite. It is a finite source. And it's something that has to continue to be regained and refueled. The second reason is that the mind and the body are out of alignment. So what you may not realize, and what my client was really struggling with, was she's like, I want to do it. I know what to do. I know how I want to do it. And I just can't do it anymore. Or I do it for a short amount of time. And her mind and body is out of alignment. So her mind is like, just do it, just do it, just do it. You can do it, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. And the body at some point in time says that I can't handle it, or that this is no longer safe. And it wants to return to a patterned way of being that it is very familiar with. So how many of you have ever tried to do something new and it's very uncomfortable, and therefore you just go back to the old way of doing something? This is the same concept as self-sabotage. So when we realize that there's something within us, in a deeper internal part of us, that is actually stopping us from continuing to be, to have, and to interact the way that we want to in the world. And for my client, it was like, she's like, I want to be content with myself. I don't want to be constantly having these arguments, right? So she, with herself, or parts of herself, which we'll get into in a minute. So she was just like, I just get down on myself. And then when she can't do it, what happens is she's like, well, see, you couldn't do it. Well, I knew it was just going to be all bad anyway. We failed one more time. What are some of the things that come up in your mind as I'm saying this? Because I've had the same thoughts before. So what do we need to do about it? We need to understand and realize that self-sabotaging is a pattern. It is not your identity. So let me just say that one more time. Self-sabotage is a pattern. It's not your identity. But what happens, because we think our thoughts are our identity, because we think everything that we do is who we become, and that's what we've been taught, that means that we are not good enough yet. See, I self-sabotaged again, and I thought I was doing better, and now I'm not. It kind of goes back to that cycle that I talked about in the last road to radical visibility. And we exhaust ourselves by continuing to push, by continuing to push, by continuing to push, and not allow ourselves to really, truly deal with or do the internal work that's needed for you to have a sustainable change, a sustainable and foundational shift in your internal way of being that will allow you to create more ease and freedom and be yourself in the way that you want to be in the world. So realizing and unattaching that your self-sabotaging pattern is not your identity. It is something that you do. And if it's something that you do, it is absolutely something that you can stop. But it needs to be the mind-body connection, not just the mind. All right, the second thing that you need to do is to create a healthier relationship with the different parts of yourself. Now, being a therapist for the last 18 years, this isn't multi-personality stuff. What this means is that we have these different parts of ourselves that we interact with or that kind of speak up when we're in different ways of being or in different environments. So for my client, a part of her was speaking up, and which we named like self-sabotage girl. And she speaks up to say, well, you might as well do this now because you're going to end up doing it anyway. And she has these thoughts and these conversations. And to realize that the process that we need to go through is creating different types of relationships with these parts of ourselves. So I'll get really vulnerable here and just say there's a part of me that has been the incredible shrinking girl. And you may not believe this because, I do so much video and I put myself out there all the time. But there's been a time in my life when the incredible shrinking girl really protected me. And this was a part of myself who would speak up, and then someone would be opposing or contradictory or say to me, you don't know what you're talking about. So then I would just shrink back into the background. I would just contract back and I would say, okay, I'm coming back to protect myself. And so this part of me was really helpful when I was a small child, even in my teen years and in my young adult years, to really protect myself. But a few years ago, what really happened was I needed to let her know that we were okay. Myself, me, and my relationship with Incredible Shrinking Girl was to really let her know, hey, thank you for protecting me. Thank you for being there for me. And I want to let you know that it's okay now. You don't have to keep doing this. And it really is, instead of go away, I don't want to talk to you, it's bullshit, blah, 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 just shove down. It's really saying, hey, I'm acknowledging this part of myself. I'm saying, I see you, I hear you. And what the incredible shrinking girl part of me really needed was for me to take her hand and say, I'm there with you. You can be out in front with me and everything is okay. Right? So we identify all these parts of ourselves. And this is what we do in the Follow Your North Star program and what I'm working with my clients. So she identified self-sabotaging girl. And so we talked about, what does she need to hear from you? What does she need from you? What does she do? And when you engage with her in that way, what are the results that you get? So with Incredible Shrinking Girl, the result was I shrunk back, and honestly, I couldn't be myself. I felt bad about myself and who I was as a lesbian in this whole religious kind of culture. as a woman in all the religious culture, as a highly sensitive person in life, just in general. So when we create healthier relationships with all the different parts of ourself, then we're really able to have more of a harmony within ourselves. So the result is that there's the incredible shrinking girl, there's none of that happens anymore. I just I just get to be me. And if we're talking about in self-sabotaging, what is the part of yourself that's the loudest? And give that part of yourself a name. Again, this isn't mental health. This isn't multi-personality disorder. What this is just recognizing that we have multiple parts of ourselves in which have been developed in order for us to continue to maintain our existence in this world. And a lot of our culture has taught us that we have to shut off some of the most beautiful parts of ourselves, like the highly sensitive part of myself. I was told to just buck up. I don't know if you've ever been told that. You grow thicker skin. This is how it is. If you want to be in corporate, this is how you have to be, right? All of the things we're told to deny these most beautiful parts of ourselves. And then what you find out through this identification is that there's a part of me that is queen, and she loves to just be herself, and she flows through life being herself, and she has her head high, and not in an egotistical way, but just in a knowing way, and an ultimate trust in herself. And so I commune with her, and that grows stronger in the way that I'm able to be in the world and interact. So the third thing is the ability to create or have the courage to discover a new reality. Now, this can be one of the scariest parts. So I just want to acknowledge that, because the definition of courage is the mental or moral strength to venture, preserve, or withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. But what we think as courage, we try and convince ourselves that I'm strong enough. I deserve this, right? I'm going to take this courage because these are all the things. But what we forget is that courage truly comes from the heart. The reason you want to stop sabotaging is because you're not enjoying the way that it feels when you do that. The reason we want to get out of the self-sabotage because it is uncomfortable, but sometimes it is the uncomfortable that is comfortable for us. And so we want to stay there. So this is part of realizing that pattern. The body is saying, I know what to expect over here. I know how to do this thing over here. The part of you is saying, we know how to do that. And so we'd rather stay here instead of venture into a new reality, instead of creating these healthier relationships. A lot of things that I hear from people when we talk about having the courage to discover a new reality and look at these parts of ourselves and have that shift in perspective, they say, I had one person say to me, I feel like if I go into my emotional self, it's just like I'm walking through a minefield. I don't know what's going to pop up. I don't know how it's going to make me feel. What if I can't do anything all day long? What if I get too anxious? I usually shut down. So we ignore these emotional parts of ourselves that are really longing to be heard and seen and accepted and loved. Another person says, I'm afraid I'm going to dive down too deep. I'm afraid if I go there, like I've gone there before, or however it's happened to me before and entering into my emotions, I won't be able to come out of it. These are very real concerns. Another person said, I'm afraid I won't know what to do with all of the emotions. I don't know about you, but sometimes when my clients and I enter into a state of vulnerability, they feel like if they start crying, they may not ever stop. And then how am I going to work? How am I going to go through my life? I have to take care of my family. I have to go to the grocery store, right? The beautiful part of the work I get to do with my clients is that I understand that. And because I've been a licensed psychotherapist for the last 18 years, I really am an expert in helping people work through and manage these emotions that come up with more ease. and truly begin to experience their life the way that they want to. They get to experience it in their business the way that they want to. They're no longer afraid to just be themselves, to show up on video, to show up on a post, to show up on a podcast, whatever it is. They're no longer contracting because of protection, right? They begin to play with the possibility. I love this phrase. It is like my phrase. They begin to play with the possibility of what life can look like, because their identity is no longer attached to the things that they believed were their identity, therefore creating their reality. So in addressing this cycle of self-sabotage, what's needed is to realize and unattach the pattern of self-sabotage from your identity. Create a healthier relationship with all the different parts of yourself, and to create and have the courage to discover a new reality. And realizing that you don't have to do this alone, right? The Follow Your North Star program is exactly meant for people who are really ready to begin to move through this process, who have this voice within them, whether it's just like a tap or whether it's like a true like banging. Mine was banging, like, we've got to change this shit. Like, life is too short. I had another person contact me and said, something tragic has happened in my life. And I finally realized I don't want to continue being this way in my life. I don't want to continue experiencing these experiences. Life is too short, and it's time for me to be in my life, to be participating in these decisions. And I'm ready to move through the things that have been keeping me stuck in that. I'm ready to move through this self-sabotaging behavior and say, hey, I see all parts of myself. I can love all parts of myself. And when my clients do that, it is a freaking remarkable experience. So I hope that you can take this episode today and find a little bit more understanding about how you can really stop the cycle of self-sabotage, how you can learn to fully accept yourself and all parts of yourself just as you are. And how when you begin to create these different relationships with these parts of yourself, and maybe you don't know what they are. A lot of times my clients will be like, I don't know, but we work through that process. And you'll be able to begin to say, I want to be more nurturing and healing to these parts of me that are really yearning for it because they haven't ever had it before. And if you're interested in hearing more about the Follow Your North Star program, please feel free to reach out to me. You can private message me from any of my social media channels, from my YouTube, and you can also reach me at rachelfreemonsowers@gmail.com. So as you go through this next week, I want to empower you to take on just one of these things. Even if it's just you begin to realize that when you self-sabotage, it's not your identity. It is just a pattern. And you can say to yourself, this is a pattern that I've become accustomed to. And this is what I'm wanting to do about that. And this is how I'll change it. And through that, you begin to end the self-sabotage cycle. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'll end this video like I end every single video. Please make sure to stay true to yourself, be kind to others, and always, always, always honor the wise one that is within you. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you in the next episode.